All right, the recording has started, and this is the February 23rd, 2021 Rook Community Meeting. Let's jump on into the milestones here. We do not have a 1.4 release planned currently right now, but this week it looks like we'll be doing a patch release for 1.5. Is that probably maybe typical cadence there, or there's some burning issues on that one, Travis?
Yeah, it's just the cadence, really. I feel like this is probably the last one for 1.5 that we'll stick with the 2-week. We might go to the 3 or 4 week cadence after this, just because it's starting to slow down. But yeah, nothing burning really, just the cadence.
Got it. Yep, that sounds reasonable. All right, and then yeah, 1.6, we're still cruising towards our next quarterly release for the end of March, early April timeframe. See what sort of happenings there, progress since the last community meeting do we have to share there?
Yeah, I just spent 5 or 10 minutes looking at this board and updating tickets, so it still needs more attention, but stuff's in progress. We're going. I feel like there's been, I don't know if it's a longer tail from 1.5, but there's still things we've been doing for 1.5. And not as much on feature development for 1.6, except for what's coming with Pacific. Is that Pacific? So anyway, stuff's progressing.
What are some of the biggest?
No, go ahead.
What are some of the biggest feature improvements and stuff in Pacific?
There's the SFFS mirroring is the big one that comes to mind. Seb, other things?
No. I guess, yeah, this one is quite big, but I don't really recall anything really major despite this one.
I wanted to comment specifically on with the improvements inside of Blue Store. Specifically, I will say inside of Red Hat, that is what we're looking at. And yeah, Blue Store in general is going to help with Rados in general. It's not really a exciting feature in terms, but I think people will see a slight improvement in terms of IO performance. So that is something that I'm going to be highlighting in our release messaging at some point.
Awesome. That sounds good, Mike.
But Jared, I will perhaps in the next community meeting, which I think is in a couple of weeks, right? I will try to perhaps put together, from a Ceph Etherpad, just a list of different features from the Ceph leadership team in terms of features that they would like to see highlighted, so that the general Rook community could be more informed about it, and I'll talk about it in a Slack thread or something like that.
Yeah, that sounds great. Yeah, more awareness as to like what's going into the underlying storage providers and the functionality that will be available for any consumers of it, no matter what the their distribution or way that they deploy it is certainly helpful. Yeah, that's a great idea.
Yeah, I have more to talk about in terms of some of the contributors to Rook that I spoke to at the Rook booth at DEF CONF, but we could talk about that later in the meeting.
Yeah, do you want to add an item to the agenda about that one there? And we could dive into that for sure later on. That sounds a great topic.
Yeah, working on it now. Thank you.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so anything else for 1.6 then? For features to highlight or obstacles or anything like that?
No, I don't think so. And just one more comment about Pacific. I think when I think of, or when the question comes up, what's in Pacific, what comes to my mind is just what we need to expose from Rook, from CRs or whatever. So yeah, I know there's a lot more work under the covers and improvements. So it'll be great to have that spelled out for us. So thanks, Mike.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Okay. Yep. So we're still working on, towards the timeline, expected timeline that we've been thinking about there for the quarterly release cadence there, late March, early April. So progress is ongoing on that. Looks like a whole bunch of activity down here. This is exciting. I like this. So we'll start in the community topics section now here. So the old Docker Hub open source program there. It's been a bit of a roller coaster, but I have some good news for that part at least. Where they rejected initially, well, after a while they rejected our proposal to our application to be part of the open source program, and they said that that the project is funded by commercial entities, so it's not eligible. And so I pushed back on that, and I was asking for details about that. What is the policy? Where the CNCF owns the project, the trademark, the IP, all that sort of stuff. Like, what's the deal here? Is that not a vendor neutral home for it? And then it turns out that apparently CNCF projects do have, and they're allow listed for being approved here. So after getting Ihor involved from the CNCF to confirm that we are CNCF project indeed, they said that we're approved. So I have not seen though the official confirmation, or if there's any sort of like like our profile getting a badge or something like that. Like, I have not heard that, but the roller coaster of emotions that we've been through here is apparently that we are approved, and that once that's finalized in some way, that I would hope, or I would expect, to no longer see rate limit throttling stuff anymore.
Cool. That's great news. Yeah.
Seb,
Thanks.
you were looking into Quay.io though, or did you make moves on that, or was you just starting to look into it?
I just started looking into it. I think, just like my last comment, I think we have to investigate on our side if we can get enterprise licenses for Quay, so that we can easily migrate or mirror images from the Docker Hub to Quay. That will be one simple way to have both registries supported.
Mhm.
But we haven't made any progress on that.
And I'd say it'd still be nice to have the mirroring if we could set that up, but at least it's not urgent if the rate limiting is not a problem for people anymore.
Yeah. If we get rid of the limit, it is probably fine.
Yeah.
So I spoke to David Galloway, who manages Ceph infrastructure, and as I understand now, after these conversations also that Ceph has been involved with, so Ceph has its own Quay instance that it has set up, and which we are using for our own containers. And as I understand right now, that seems to be working out for the community as a workaround to these limits that are presented with Docker Hub. So it was offered by David Galloway to do mirroring as well in this infrastructure, and to provide that if that is something that the community would like to do. We could explore that more, and it would just be a matter of us looping in David Galloway into this, and he can provide that as a service to the Rook community, as we are already doing with Ceph.
I think if the Ceph images are at least mirrored first, I mean, that's, yeah, definitely that'll help. Because are all of the Ceph images already being mirrored, or is it because there's the Ceph/Ceph Docker Hub images that we're using for Rook? So those are the ones. Okay.
Yeah, you have to excuse my ignorance. I don't know exactly everything that's being mirrored. I am aware that the Ceph community is using it as for a mirror, so as a workaround to this problem that the community has already hit as well. So it's just a potential, as Jared was saying, we could use it as another mirror that's available, and it would be available to take some of the workload. And I think this might be a good option, not just from we don't want it to just be Red Hat that's supporting this infrastructure. Of course, it's a good option for anybody who wants to provide mirroring to the Rook community in this regard.
Right. Because the Rook approval by Docker Hub does not extend to Ceph. So as long as Ceph has that mirror, that unblocks this. But at the same time, if he can set up the mirroring of Rook at the same time,
yeah,
maybe that's an option.
Yeah, I mean, I could say that this is coming from the standpoint that, of course, we, from the Ceph community, we have interest in the success of the Rook. So this is something that I could work out on my end and get our, person that's managing our infrastructure involved. So doesn't have to be a permanent home, by the way. It's just another mirroring option. So to get us by.
And now I'm vaguely remembering you already added me to a thread with him, but so okay, so I should look at that again. That's an option. Great.
Cool. Well, that sounds awesome. Yeah, so hopefully we'll get some sort of official, confirmation for or a badge or something to confirm in a more complete way that we are no longer subjected to the rate limiting. Blaine, do you want to oh, go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Jared. I didn't mean to interrupt. I was just going to say that if you, I know that you're already speaking to somebody at the CNCF, but I have multiple colleagues who have left to the CNCF that are helping in community around these guidelines. So if there's anything I could do in terms of helping as well for anything that you're trying to do, let me know.
Awesome, Mike. I appreciate that the offer there. You're always a quite helpful person, Mike. I don't think anyone's ever said that you're not helpful.
That's Amy, and who else are you referring to, or who else do you know?
Yeah, I have a couple of developer advocates that I met back in Barcelona that were present at CephLCon that have been interested in wanting to help more with the Ceph presence. And so I'm sure, with Rook, that's specifically why. So I think with that sort of help in terms of any other goals that we may hit in terms of blockers like this, I could share the actual names. I just don't have them in front of me. I apologize. So, but okay. Just people in the past from Barcelona, 2 developer advocates that I'm thinking of in particular that I've been following. So
sounds good.
Yep.
Awesome.
Also, Josh Burkus as well from Red Hat side, that is still one of my colleagues here. So he's a big help in terms of anything that you need done in CNCF.
Yeah, he's a force upstream.
Yeah. So
I'll say that.
Yeah, he can definitely help us when we need to.
Very cool. Very cool. Blaine, do you want to drop your Google account email in the chat to me, and then so I can copy that and put that into the sharing to make you an editor, since you're adding a lot of useful stuff here, and I can just give you direct access. Cool. So
I was on mute. Sorry.
Oh, no worries.
Yeah, how is best to do that? Sorry.
You just put it in the Zoom chat to me. You don't have to put it to everyone. It could just be just to me, and then I'll just put it into the sharing here. Awesome. All right. So Travis, do you want to take the next couple agenda items there?
Alrighty. So after our last meeting, I opened a PR to remove the 3 storage providers from the website. That's EdgeFS, Cockroach, and UGBDB. After I opened it, I forgot about it, but since we had the meeting, it's up again. So there's no last minute concerns, I assume. So I'll go ahead and merge that unless I hear otherwise. We're good to go though, right? All in favor, say aye.
Yeah, I didn't see any major concerns there, Travis.
Yep. All right.
Were you able to run the site locally too, to test it and make sure that it's
I've not. Yeah. Blaine and I just dug up those instructions a couple days ago, so I'll do that.
Yeah, I know Blaine was doing it recently with all these options for like code formatting blocks and stuff like that. Like Blaine's definitely been running it locally.
Yeah,
that's for sure. That was great. That was really cool. Oh, oops.
Yeah.
Okay. There you go. And Blaine, you may have the editor access now. You might have to refresh the page, so I'm not sure if it does it async or not. Okay.
Next item, I just commented on the ticket yesterday as far as getting increased GitHub actions. They responded saying that a few weeks ago, GitHub had some operational issues and hadn't done it yet, but they were going to check again. So still not done, still waiting. Hopefully soon. So because we're kind of blocked on getting more actions running. And then next one, I opened a ticket also a couple weeks ago for just realizing that on our Rook maintainers mailing list for the CNCF, we only had, or we were missing some of our newer maintainers. So everyone, so Blaine and Seb and Satoru, I think should have all received an invite. Seb, did you see that? Seb and Blaine? I think Blaine said you.
Yeah, I think I get it. Yeah, I did.
Yeah, sounds good. So we should be up to date on that list.
Thanks.
Yep. Just that's it for that one. Unless there's questions. All right. And then outreachy intern coming up. So we have another opportunity to get an intern. We still have funding from the last one since it was our previous one canceled. But Blaine, you want to talk about potential projects or the Helm project? I guess.
Yeah, we talked a little bit about reusing the previous projects, but there's also been some work on those that might not make them the best. For the new project, the thing that's on my mind has been kind of updating the Helm charts. That's been something on our heads for a little while. I guess we're recently learning that there's a rancher pattern that in my opinion, I think this is not, I don't think this is a good pattern. I think this is kind of a smell about like how Helm doesn't really have a good strategy for managing CRDs, but Rancher's solution to this is to make a pattern that CRDs are one chart and then operator and other stuff is another chart. And then those are versioned together. And then that way, Rancher is able to update the CRDs. Whereas like Helm v3's most recent, like put this in a CRDs folder is not great because it only handles creation of CRDs, but not updates. So the current thinking is that we may want a CRD chart, an operator chart, and then a chart that has basic resources like the Ceph cluster that will spit out a basic working version of Rook for users that kind of expect that. But to not go past just a basic working version, and because we can rely on like a post renderer and or the customized stuff built into kubectl to complexify CRs. Yeah, the ongoing discussion issue is linked there. If you have experience with Helm or are curious about like what the conversation has been, please take a look. It's I think Helm's management of CRDs makes it just kind of an annoying thing to think about and try to plan for.
Is there any potential for Helm upstream to add, updating, upgrading functionality for CRDs? Is that off the table or is it possible?
I think it's something they have opted not to do because updating CRDs can be it can be damaging, and so they have to assume that like users or like they have to assume that the CRDs could like updating CRDs could break stuff. With Rook's case, we try really hard not to break stuff, and the CRDs even include like bug fixes sometimes if there's like been a parameter missing, or if we need to.
Backward compatibility is key for that.
Right. So I mean, I see that just managing CRDs with the operator is potentially something that it isn't broadly recommended, but I think it is I think it is okay for us to do in Rook, and I think that is the thing that we need to do because we do put a lot of focus into backwards compatibility.
Agreed. So I think, I mean, we still need to, I guess, finalize that discussion and the design around what we want to do with our Helm charts. As far as outreachy, do you feel like there's a significant project there that we need done? I think so, but.
Yeah, I think it's pretty significant to like reorganize the Helm charts to get a CRD chart, to get an operator chart, optionally to create a chart for the custom resources, to tidy those up. And then also potentially we can generate some of the example manifests from the Helm charts as a build step. And there is also ability for Helm charts to be like parents of other Helm charts. And so if we have a separate CRD chart and operator chart, that's good for the rancher case, but that's not good for most of our users, I think. But if we like investigate options to have the CRD chart be an optional child of the operator chart, or we create a like sort of meta chart that encompasses both of those, then we have we have basically the same user story that we have now, which I think is good for users that are not on Rancher, that don't like really want to follow I have a separate CRD chart from operator chart. So I think there's a lot to do there. I guess I have concerns that users might be like, Helm, like I can figure that out on myself or whatever. It might be good to figure out a project that is a little more in the vein of like sysadmin type work, or that like would include working with like Go. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Well, sounds good. So we got lots to flush out, but I think I think that'd be a good or ideal project for an intern to help us flush that out.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, what is the outreachy like, I don't know what they're called there for the outreachy program, but like the window of time, like is it like a rolling thing, or is it a particular timeline?
Yeah, I don't have it in front of me. I want to say it is May. So it's summertime and wintertime. This next round is starting in May. If you go to the website, you could see the timeline for both winter and summertime. So we are of course, going into the summer period, and they basically have this time period reoccur every year and just have it separated out.
Got it.
Yep.
Cool. Yeah, like there's a lot of options for getting younger folks and folks early in their careers there involved in community open source projects. Like there's the outreachy stuff that we're doing here. There's Google Summer of Code, the LFX mentorship program too that the CNCF and Linux Foundation does as well too. There's a lot of opportunities for that. It's pretty awesome.
Yeah, and I would encourage the Rook community to consider Google Summer of Code. Now, it is a very vetted process, and it does involve like somebody filling out a form, and it could be quite lengthy, I would say, as opposed to a lot of the other programs. It could be very rewarding though, in terms of what you could get out of it. So if we have of interest for the next round with Google Summer of Code, that is definitely something I can help coordinate in terms of the application, as well as having somebody to, vet the Rook community in for the first round, because you kind of also, it helps to know other organizations that are involved. So I could definitely do that as well, since we're already doing great work in outreachy.
Yeah, we've done Google Summer of Code. I think three summers now.
Oh,
we've done
my
it.
mistake. My mistake.
Yeah,
Sorry.
it's been very successful each time. I've really found that to be rewarding and high quality and just a great experience all around. I've really enjoyed that program.
Okay, yeah, no problem. So
Yeah, the
my
CNCF
mistake.
kind of organizes that together too amongst the CNCF projects. Like to
Oh,
get
that's
a project,
cool.
yeah, you submit a PR to the CNCF repo, and then they're the organization admins for it, and then the mentors come from each of the projects. It's pretty well done. Yeah, it's been good.
Yeah. Yeah, it was just I spoke to Travis for this round and it seemed like we were skipping out this time around. But I was working on the application for Ceph, which, you know, we've had our application not accepted because of like a missing answer to a form question. And they will not accept your application after that for missing that one field, even though it wasn't required. So it's interesting, I will say. So it's good if you know somebody that knows the nuances of getting in, like it just helps. Like anybody could fill out the form. It's just dealing with the people, I would say. So
yeah, that's interesting. No intern for you, it sounds like.
Yeah, and it's like we're
tough.
trying to help you actually. So
Yeah, wow, interesting.
Yeah, and I think just our capacity for interns is probably one at a time. So
yeah, that's
a good point. Yeah,
fair enough.
That's the only reason I guess I'd want to pass on Google Summer of Code right now if we're doing outreachy this summer. So,
yeah, cool. All right, head on down to the removing support for self-drive groups.
Wayne, you want to go for it?
Yeah, I'll start talking about this. Travis and Seb, feel free to jump in. Yeah, so there's also the issue link there where you can read. We're trying to reach out to see if anyone's using this feature, but ultimately it is it's just something that's kind of I guess stretching us thin a little bit, especially with changes to OSDs. There's a lot of code in there. There are no known users of the feature. I've reached out to a user that had mentioned it on Slack that's not using it. And we've also talked about having a hopeful goal to have a more like Kubernetes native PVC only deployment method by the end of the year that is also still user friendly for people who have raw disks, which means kind of having a like known working and recommended procedure for creating PVCs from raw disks in an easy to consume way. The drag groups feature was added for the SUSE use case, but with the SUSE dev team kind of pretty much abandoning ship, and I also reached out to the architect while I was there, and he's supportive of the broader move to a more like Kubernetes native deployment method, and yeah, from the issue, you should also be able to link to the pull request I opened yesterday. We have instructions for migrating. If users are using drive groups that like don't get the messages that we have put out on like Slack and stuff, they should be aware that it's happening, and they should like be able to read documentation about how to migrate.
Yep, sounds good. I think we're good to remove that feature. Simplifying the CRs is always nice.
All right, cool, Blaine. Thanks for sharing that and writing up the thoughts on it and everything like that, and documentation and everything too to smooth that transition as much as possible. Cool.
Yeah.
All right, Mike, you got some t-shirts, huh?
Yeah, so finally got these shirts. They've been printed since November. We wanted them for KubeCon a while back, and I wanted them for the Rook presence, but that kind of didn't happen. So I want to be clear, though, that these shirts can only be acquired by a promo code. So we are not selling these shirts. It's just purely to give them out to people. We first debuted them at DEF CONF, which was February 18th through the 20th. And yeah, it's just we want to be able to send out shirts to all contributors of Rook. That was the original goal, and that is still the goal. So I have sent some of you directly a link with promo code, and Richard and Dave, I'll get you in there as well after this with a link and promo code. So, and yeah, you can request a shirt, free international shipping, takes care of the cost as well. So, and we just want to get shirts out to all contributors. I will be doing my best to try to figure out, based on the list that I already have acquired from the authors list, sending out to people that want shirts. That's pretty much our main goal. And there are a few places, a few countries we can't ship out to due to custom laws, local custom laws. So can't really work around that. But we'll try to set up local vendors in particular countries that may be needed as well, based on demand. That's about all I have on terms of Rook shirts. We also have Ceph shirts as well that we're handing out as well.
That's awesome, Mike. I like this, and I like how too like there's for the cool stuff store. That's awesome.
I got to be honest with you. I mainly I'm using a Red Hat vendor here, and I'm not really sold on anything like this. This is just purely to get people a form to a vendor and get their address information to send out a shirt. That's about it. And I'm not sold on this solution by any means. It's just something to temporarily solve this solution during a pandemic, I would say. So
it's a working process. That's good. But
yes.
I'm definitely curious as to what else is sold at the cool stuff store. That is, I probably have some items I'd want to pick up there, I bet.
Oh yeah, I could definitely help you in terms with that if you reach out to me privately. Sure. And we have a lot of other stuff that even Josh Burgess puts in here that's CNCF related. Like I said, the Rook shirts and the Ceph shirts aren't listed publicly on the site for a reason, because we don't have the rights to Rook itself. We are just trying to print out shirts for contributors. So I want to be clear on that. And the Ceph shirts aren't listed on there because I am looking for another vendor to begin with. So
Got it. Yep, understood. Cool. Yeah, thanks for sharing that, Mike. That's great.
Yeah, no problem. So I just want people to know, if you have contributed to Rook and you have filled out a form for a shirt, I do know about your order, and I will make sure you get a link and promo code. And if I missed you for some reason, please let me know. And if you think somebody in the community who hasn't heard about this needs a shirt, also let me know as well. I can definitely help them with that.
Perfect.
Thanks,
cool. And then the DEF CONF booth from last week as well too.
Yeah, so we got about 38 shirts passed out from DEF CONF for this, and a lot of people excited around Rook. I had a person specifically reaching out around engagement, wanting to be more engaged with the Ceph Rados Gateway, and also wanting more members of Ceph to be involved with some of the work that they are doing in Rook. I don't have the person's name in front of me, but I did make a note to follow up with them in terms of making sure that they felt like there was better presence of Ceph in different development engagement meetings, since they seem to be focusing on, oh, I'm remembering now, there is a new, as I understand, new CRD that's being defined around object storage. And they are focusing on an initiative around that. And I think that might be separating things out from Rook, unless Rook is also utilizing those CRDs. I don't know.
That must be the bucket provisioning with.
Yep, there we go.
Yeah. So that'll be coming with the COSI, whatever that stands for.
Yep.
Yeah, common object storage interface, or object store interface, I think.
Yeah. So I had some good conversations, and I will say for being a virtual event, it's not exactly exciting, and it was taking place on Hopin. However, they did make use of Discord as in a coordination in conjunction with the event, and it worked out very well in terms of people engaging at the Rook booth. And like I said, Blaine also was there to help out with some questions, provided a really great answer around Longhorn. And otherwise, yeah, I had a lot of people reaching out to me privately for shirts, and then I was just asking them for information about what do they do with Rook and as potential things that they could work on in the community. But if there's any other like particular information that I could provide people in terms of what I've noticed at the booth, I'm happy to answer those questions as well.
Cool. Glad that was a good experience that we got to participate in. Okay, so I don't see any more topics on the community section and no specific PRs to go into that we haven't already gone over previously. And Mike has taken an action item about the Pacific updates. Any other topics that people wanted to have in the agenda? All right. Well, if that's everything, then we can go ahead and adjourn for this week.
Sounds good. Thanks, everyone.
All right, thank you.
Thank you. Have a good week.
Thanks.
See you,
Bye.
everybody.
See ya.
See ya.
Thanks.